My name is Nancy Cronin. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Developmental Disabilities Council. The Council is a statewide advocacy organization for systems change. There is a council in every state and territory in the nation. We're funded through the Developmental Disabilities Act, and I thought that I would give a little bit of history and talk a little bit about what I'm seeing in the world every now and then. And I wanted to start with an experience that I remember. I was the selectman of, or I was an elected selectman in the state of Maine. And I found out what used to happen with when people couldn't afford to support themselves in America. And what happened is the towns took care of them in some way. In fact, what I'm showing on the screen right now is a part of the oath in which I took to be an overseer of the poor. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm an overseer of the poor. This is 2020 something. What are you talking about? And I learned that there was a direct connection with the role of town selectmen and town farm roads. I've lived in Maine my entire life, and I had no idea why there were so many town farm roads. Well, town farm roads were created so that before there was Social Security, before there was a mental health system, before there was much system at all, if individual didn't have a family who was able to take care of them, then a town did one of two things. One thing it might do, and this is awful, but every year we have a town meeting. At the town meeting, everybody who needed support would kind of line up, and there'd be almost an auction of sorts to say who's willing to take care of Johnny, the 14-year-old whose parents died. And as you can imagine, the town would pay for their keep for the lowest bidder. And as you can imagine, 14-year-old Johnny, who might have had a strong back and been able to help on the farm or with lumber, there would be a lot of people willing to bring him in. But 95-year-old Wilma might not have the same opportunities. Well, when there were too many people or not enough volunteers, towns either joined together and created a town farm or they had their own. And that's what the current town farm roads are now. I think you'll find lots of town farm roads in the state of Maine. And the people who were there were widows, orphans, veterans, elderly, people experiencing mental illness, people with neurodisabilities like intellectual disability, Down syndrome, autism, physical disability, substance abuse, basically anybody who needed help that didn't have means. These places were great in theory. We're going to go and we're going to send people to a farm and they'll grow crops and maybe sell them, and it won't be that expensive for towns, and it can be self-sustaining. Well, it's kind of the same idea of saying, let's take everybody who's poor and move them to the same building. They'll all love each other and get along. Well, it's a great idea, but it rarely actually comes out and works that way. And that's what happened in Maine too. Town farms were expensive for taxpayers who had to support it, and it wasn't particularly fun to be the custodian or the person who was there trying to help the folks that lived in the town farm. So in Maine, here we go. I was able to find 37 different town farm roads in Maine, and then there's other roads called the City Farm, the Alms House in Brunswick, the Poor Farm in Presque Isle. So town farm might not be exactly what it's always called, but this existed until 1938, so we're not 100 years out. Now I want to tell you about somebody else, and then I think I'll stop this particular video. And her name is Dorthea Dix. Yeah, the world right now is a little rough, and what the DD Council does is we advocate for people with developmental disabilities so that they have an opportunity to live life in the community, because I believe really firmly, and so do the people I work with, that everybody on earth has value and everybody has a gift. And even if you may have a disability, doesn't mean that you don't have something to contribute. In fact, to be honest, everybody has a disability. The idea that somebody with a label means they might have need more support may be true, but the truth is on the continuum of humanity, we all have periods in which we need support. We're far more interrelated as a species. We're far more social than you think. Okay, back to Dorthea Dix. This is a woman that I had heard of and I wasn't a big fan of because she built institutions, and I am against institutions. I don't think I just explained that I think the idea of taking a group of people based on a characteristic and having them all live together isn't the best idea. Um, but I've researched more about her, and she's directly linked to town farms. So she was born in Hampton, Maine in 1802, and her mom had a mental illness. Her mom couldn't take care of her and her brother. Her father also had substance abuse and a mental illness. And this is the kind of person that would have been sent, these children, her and her brother would have been sent to a town farm. But she had a grandmother in Boston who was wealthy and took her in, took the kids in. She, around age 14, became a teacher for poorer children, and she would teach on at the poorhouses or the farm roads, town farm roads, or the prisons. And she told stories, really awful stories about. And I'll read this out loud, really, really briefly. This is when she went to one of these town farms. This is actually a Dorthea Dix excerpt from one of her diaries. The mistress advanced with keys and a lantern. He's here, said she, unlocking the strong, solid iron door. A step down and short turn through a narrow passage to the right brought us, after a few steps, to a second iron door parallel to the first and equally solid. In like manner, this was unlocked and opened, but so terribly noxious was the poisonous air that immediately pervaded the passage that a considerable time elapsed before I was even able to return and remain long enough to investigate the horrible den. Notwithstanding the assertions of the mistress that he would kill me, I persevered. The place, when closed, had no source of light or ventilation. It was about 7 feet by 7 and 6.5 high. Even the roof was of stone. My husband, said the mistress, in winter rakes out sometimes of a morning half of bushel of frost, and yet he never freezes, referring to the oppressed and life-stricken maniac before us. Sometimes he screams dreadfully, she added, and that is the reason that we had the double wall and the 2 doors in place of his one. His cries disturbed us in the house. How long has he been there? Oh, about 3 years, but then he was kept a long while in a cage first, but once he broke his chains and bars and escaped, so we had to build this where he can't get off. What must Dorthea Dix have thought when she went and saw that, knowing that she easily could have ended up in a town farm in the same kind of place? Do you think she felt privileged? Lucky? Angry? Powerless? Sick? Today I look at how some people are being treated, and some people with developmental disabilities are being treated. And I honestly feel the same way. I hear stories every day of things that are just not cool. But what Dorthea Dix did really has changed my life and become part of how I'm handling these days. And what she did is she took her privilege, she took her opportunities, she took her community, and she made these people's lives and problems visible. She published in newspapers, she talked to legislators, and she tried something new and she advocated for asylums. Now, I am not a big fan of institutions. I'm not a fan. I don't like it. But that doesn't stop the reality that in times in which you don't have a new solution or a solution at all, that you shouldn't do something. And the fact that she made problems visible allowed people to start talking about what to do. And I find right now there's a lot of invisible people. There's a lot of invisible stories. And I think if we every now and then make those real human life stories visible, maybe we'll be able to find a solution. Maybe we'll make something better. And if nothing else, I think sometimes just making problems visible is doing important things in a time that's distracted by just noise. Just noise. All right, that's all I got today. If you watched this, thank you. I hope this was interesting. Um, I'm going to post every now and then and kind of tell you what I'm seeing, maybe drop a little bit of my history while I'm at it. And I hope you have a good day.